Hi everybody, and welcome back to Kevin's Upfront Opinion. Now, I've already spoken in a previous video about Manchester United and the problems that they've got. Now I'm going to address Arsenal. Now, when I look at Arsenal, also think of Leeds, because it's another classic case where I've complained at somebody that I know. But when it comes to Leeds, they need a striker. They've needed a striker for God knows how many years. Now, the fundamental problem is the same at Arsenal. Now, if you watch Sky Sports yesterday after the game, like Roy Keane, Gary Neville, Jamie Carragher, and I can't remember who else was there, to be honest, went on their little tangent of saying the problem that but Arsenal have got is they've invested in a defence. You know, you look at yesterday's team sheet, you know, you've got Timber, you've got Saliba, you've got Gabriel, and you've got the Italian guy whose name I'm not going to try and pronounce. Fantastic defence. Not surprised they're not conceding a lot of goals generally over the last couple of years. You look at the midfield, fairly decent. Odegaard, Partey, Declan Rice, good midfield. And then you come to the attack. Guy on the right, the young lad, not going to try and pronounce his name because I'm going to mess it up and I don't want to insult the kid. Marino and Trossard. Now, if you look at those three, and if I actually looked at the stats, who would actually say that is a decent front three to go with? You know, I don't actually know how many goals Marino's actually scored in his actual career. You know, he's been playing for 10 years, and he scored 24, 25, he scored 30 goals in 10 years. 3 goals a season. 3 goals a season. And you're basically playing him as your centre forward. Okay. You're probably going to be able to put a different argument forward when you go and look at the guy that played on the right hand side, whose name I don't want to try and pronounce because I'm probably going to mess it up. Now, I'm hoping this lad's done a bit better. Okay. So, career's been running for 2 years. 20 games, 3 goals. Which basically is almost a goal every 7 games. Not exactly a forwards kind of stats, to be honest with you. Okay. And when you go and look at Trossard, you know, I'm hoping he's going to be slightly better. So let's just take a look at his Brighton career. He's at Brighton for 4 years. Okay, 116 games, 25 goals. Nearly 1 every 5 games. At Arsenal, he's played 82 games. Scored 17 goals. My maths ain't that great. So what's that work out at? Yet again, a goal every 5 games. Almost. 4.82. So, the fundamental thing. Now, I appreciate Saka wasn't playing. You know, whether he's injured or whatever. Okay. But, is that good enough? If you want to win the Premier League, and that's what Arsenal want. You know, they've been crying for that for 20 years? However long it is since they last won the Premier League. You know, growing up, you know, they've always been that big team pretty much towards the top of the table. Maybe not in recent years, but historically they are. You know, a bit like Liverpool or Man United. Okay, so one thing I can see that's wrong with this starting lineup, and it's clear as day when I look at it, no centre forward. You look at the subs bench, no centre forward. Now, a lot of Arsenal players may say about this, because when I look at it, you've got Martinelli, who can score goals. You've got Raheem Sterling, historically, can score a lot of goals, both on the subspect. Now, a lot of Arsenal players may say to me, yeah, but they haven't really been performing. What I don't see there is any striker, a centre forward, somebody that if you cross the ball into the box, is going to bang it in the net. Now, when you go and look, if you just look at the top 5, take Arsenal away, you've got Liverpool. You know, you've got players straight across their front three. You know, virtually every single game, they are going to bang goals in the back of the net. You know, you just got to look at how they played on Saturday. Go one goal down to Southampton. You got Mo Salah going to score goals. You got Nunes and Diaz potentially going to score goals. You look at their subs bench. You got Jota on there as well. You've even got Chiesa. I appreciate he ain't played a great deal. Can score goals. You know, you've got 5 good options there. 2 on the bench that are potentially are going to get you goals and got a good chance of getting goals. Okay, so that's Liverpool out of the way. You look at Nottingham Forest, team I support. You can see that I've got the shirt on. Okay, I'm going to try not to be too biased here. Okay, which is easier said than done at times. Okay, right. Now, obviously, ain't had the best last few seasons. But if you look at Nottingham Forest, now we play a 4-2-3-1. You got Chris Wood up front. You know, I've always said he's like the classic English centre forward. It's going to be in the box. 2 wide players, both can score goals. In Callum Hudson-Odoi, Alanga, and then you got Morgan Gibbs White. If you're not getting goals off them 3 behind him, you're getting bloody assists for Chris Wood. That's Forest done. Okay, now we come to Chelsea. So this is basically the lineups for at the weekend, and the question of why Arsenal aren't doing it. You got Pedro Neto. Don't really like Pedro Neto, but okay. Then behind him, you got Sancho. You're going to get assists. If you don't score, it's going to get you assist. Cole Palmer. And then you got the guy that came from Germany. Not going to try and pronounce his name because I'm going to mess it up. That's Chelsea done. Nothing wrong with that 4 that are going to be basically up front. You've basically got a striker there at the end of the day. And then you come to Man City. You know, now, yes, I appreciate Forest beat Man City first time since we came up. All right, enough of that. Okay, now let's take a look at this. This 5. How on earth we never got smashed by Man City? I appreciate Man City are having an off season this season. You got Ireland up front. You got your centre forward. You got your number 9. Behind him, Bernardo Silva, Foden, Doku, Savino. You can't complain about that. You know, odds on they're going to get goals or they're going to get assists. So go and buy that. And if you take it, like I said, take a look at the top 5. The only one out of them 5 teams that doesn't have a centre forward that's going to be in the box there, if you put the ball in, is Arsenal. The only reason Arsenal aren't going to win the Premier League this season, and technically they should, considering Man City aren't doing very well this season. They've been pretty patchy, to say the least. Nottingham Forest are a surprise package. Chelsea are a bit patchy. And Liverpool have done well, because they got a fantastic front 3. They got a pretty solid defence. Now Arsenal, the way that I see it, is I don't actually understand what Arteta's doing, because sometimes I look at Arteta and I think he's going back to the George Graham way of making sure you've got a solid back four, because if we don't concede any goals, we're guaranteed at least 1 point, and we'll try and nick a goal. That was the George Graham way back in the 90s at the end of the day, which did well for him. And then I see him trying to do what Pep does, and I appreciate he worked under Pep, where I'm going to play a false 9 because I don't trust my centre forward in Jesus, who doesn't really score goals anyway, so I can understand that point of view. And I'm going to use a false 9 because it worked well for Pep, so why shouldn't it work for me? Well, fundamentally, you need people behind that person who's playing false 9, who's going to play the ball forward loads, a bit like Messi did at Barcelona, and keep on threading it through, and hopefully you're going to get the goal. But you need people that can score. And the fundamental problem, if you look at Arsenal, and I've already gone through the stats of what their past records are, okay, they haven't got people there that can score goals. So fundamentally, they need to go and get a striker. There's no ifs or buts about it. They need a striker, and they don't need one striker. They're fundamentally, if you look at this, okay, he obviously doesn't trust Martinelli. Raheem Sterling's going to be gone in the summer, so he needs another left winger because Trossard's not going to do it. He needs probably 2 strikers because he probably should get rid of Jesus, and he needs a decent backup to Saka, because this whatever his name is, I apologise to the kid. If you see this video, I do apologise. If you want to come and tell me how to pronounce your name, I've got no problem with that. I won't be insulted. Okay, but he needs a proper backup for Saka, because he's only a kid at the end of the day. So then boils down to the questions you get, because it's not easy to get strikers nowadays. You know, from what I've just said, you're probably looking at 200 million, if not more, maybe even 250 million pounds you're going to have to spend there. And historically, Arsenal don't go buying spending big bucks. I appreciate you spent big bucks on Declan Rice, but historically, Arsenal are a team that normally go and get players maybe from abroad that have made it, but they're not really known. You know, if you look through their team, David Raya, nothing great about him. Okay, yeah, he was a Premier League player. Look at William Saliba. Wasn't all singing and dancing. You know, he was one for the future. Gabriel, bit of a surprise, did well. Partey, even Odegaard, he was on the fringes. Yeah, there was a time where everybody's expecting him to do fantastic. But generally, you know, you go back the last 20 years, Arsenal have not gone out really and paid the big bucks to get players that are already ready. Classic example, Man United, who go and do that. And look at the state of them. So, let us know what you think. Am I right? Am I wrong? Do Arsenal need basically a full front three? Probably a backup on the right, a new replacement on the left to go straight in, and probably 2 decent strikers. Let us know in the comments what you think. But for now, thanks for watching, and I'll speak to you again a bit later.